Hey folks, welcome back to Carl's Off the Grid. On this week's video, it's going to be a little bit longer video than what I normally have. It's coming as per request from a viewer, Dave Kovacs. Sorry if I butchered your last name, but he had brought up a good question, and I thought about it, and it's probably the most common question that's been asked of me is how much did you pay for the cabin total? So this week's video is going to be about what I paid for everything in the cabin. I'll discuss pricing from the shell of the cabin when I first bought it to the price of the garage, and then I'll give all the prices of the mechanicals that I included in it as well. I'm not going to cover any of the furniture. We're just going to do the base price on everything that goes into giving you a good livable cabin. So thank you for joining us this week. And I'd like to share with you a little bit of a clip and give my thanks and gratitude out to my family who helped me put this cabin together. And here's just a few short scenes to remind you what we've gone through in the last year to get to the point where we're at right now with the off-grid cabin. Okay, let's get into the cost of the cabin now. Now this price that I'm going to quote you for the cabin is a little bit higher than what the standard cabin is. The standard cabin shell comes at a price of right around $6,200 for the size that we got. I ordered it with some extras. We've got insulated floors throughout the cabin. The loft that overhangs the porch is insulated, the floor is. We've got foam insulation that was blown into all the walls. We have upgraded windows that are insulated, and we also have upgraded doors. So the initial cost, instead of that $6,200, the cabin shell cost me $9,907. When I had the cabin delivered, I also ordered that garage right away. The garage was $6,294. And then when they come to deliver the cabin, they will just set it on whatever foundation you have there. I wanted to have the cabin up off the ground so I didn't have to worry about rot or water, so I paid an extra $129.37 for concrete pavers to have the cabin lifted up off the ground. In the area where we have the cabin, I have a lot of pit fill, which is basically like gravel. If you were in a more populated area, that's what they refer to it as. When we went ahead and excavated out the lot, we found out that we have a base of about 5 feet of this stuff. So for that reason, I wasn't going to go ahead and pour a concrete foundation and everything. There's no need for it. It was best, all the people that I talked to that engineered, different buildings or homes, they said, you're fine just going ahead and putting it up on concrete pavers. So that's what we did. Now, let's get into the mechanicals. DC wiring. For those of you who aren't yet up to what off-the-grid stuff is, DC wiring is going to be the solar wiring. And what I have powering the cabin right now is 2 Harbor Freight solar kits. Each kit comes with a charge controller, your solar panels, all the wiring, so on and so forth. Each kit was $148. So I got 2 kits, so that's $296 that I have invested just in the solar panels, charge controllers, and things of that nature. I didn't want to get their battery. I wanted to have a high quality battery. So what I did is I went online and I found a very high powered Renogy battery that was another $368.37. And coincidentally, the cheapest store that had it online was Home Depot. So that's what we use for our power bank, is the Renogy battery. The LED lights, if you notice in the cabin throughout that opening video, the LED lights are really small, low voltage lights. They are considered like reading lights or something of that nature for RVs. Those lights are the most powerful lights that I could find for the dollar. They were fairly cheap. I've got 4 lights on the main floor and 2 lights in the bedroom, 2 lights up in the loft. That came for a grand total of $126.50. And then if you notice also in the cabin, the way that I turn those lights on is I have that blue instrument panel. That instrument panel, excuse me, is just an instrument panel like you would use in your RV or a boat. And matter of fact, I think I bought it from a boat store. That instrument panel was only $34. It came with all the fuses and everything to protect the system, so I don't have to worry about blowing up any of my DC wiring or anything like that. And I forgot to mention, but that Renogy battery I think came with a larger breaker that comes right, or fuse that comes right after the battery as well. So that was $34. DC wiring. When you wire up for solar, you have to use stranded wire. You cannot use the regular wiring like what you would have in your normal home. I had to pay $38 to get all the stranded wire. And then I went ahead and installed everything myself, saved myself money by doing it. That brings us to the AC wiring. What I did is I set the house up in a continuous loop. And I put a electrical receptor outside that I can have my generator plugged into to power all my regular outlets, or I also have an inverter, but I haven't used the inverter yet, oddly enough. I can plug a cord into my inverter and then plug it into that outlet, and it will energize that continuous loop. The wiring for my AC wiring cost me $0. There was a house that went up for sale at the end of my road, and the wiring was going to be thrown out because there was no more need for it, and they didn't want the new owners to have to worry about having trash in the basement. So I got all my 10 and 12 gauge wiring for AC wiring free of charge. I didn't pay a dime for it. I did have to buy, though, the outlets that I have throughout the cabin, and then when I come in the front door, I have a light switch set up to where if I ever decide to put in a ceiling fan, or if I want to switch over some of my lighting in the family room, I could go ahead and use that outlet. And it covers the cost of my rough end boxes, wire nuts, all that other stuff. I paid $86.33 for, and that completes the electrical system. I didn't include the generator because the generator I didn't feel was part of the cabin. So I'm just quoting you prices of things that only pertain to the construction of the cabin. All right, the very next project we got to, after we went ahead and wired the cabin for the AC and DC powering, then we had it. We were just sick of smelling insulation. We were sick of having it be an echo chamber in there. So I got together with my son Nick, and I got together with my son Shorts, and we went ahead and put in the tongue and groove car siding. Now the car siding, I was a little bit leery because I had never heard of this wood being referred to as car siding. It's basically tongue and groove pine boards. We got that from one of the big box stores. I believe it was Home Depot. And my wife is shaking her head no. Menards. We got that from Menards. And that came to a grand total of $1,097. Now, I haven't finished the lofts, but I have enough wood that's set up in storage in the garage up there to where I can go ahead and finish the lofts. So if you're wondering, well, hey, you're not really giving us an accurate reading because your cabin isn't completely done yet, I already do have those items pre-ordered and they're at the cabin. I did not figure in nails. I have got an old Senko nail gun, and I have hundreds of nails laying around this place. I just used up what nails were just sitting around collecting dust, so we had no cost for the nails. That brings us to the corrugated galvanized ceiling. Ooh, I had a lot of response on that ceiling. When I first put it in, it was really bright, really shiny, and I think a lot of people thought I was crazy for putting that corrugated siding up on the ceiling, but there was a reason for it. And in all the littler off-grid cabins that I've had experience with or talked to friends that had off-grid cabins, in the wintertime, it's really hard. In our climate here in northern Wisconsin, we are like in a wind tunnel. I'm between Lake Superior and Lake Michigan, and we get really high winds, and it's hard to keep the cabin feeling warm. And I was reading an article, and a guy talked about how when you use this galvanized corrugated siding as your ceiling material, it reflects the light that comes off your wood burning stove. And he was talking about how great it felt as he was walking through his house. He could feel it pouring down on his face and his body, and he's absolutely right. I'm glad I made that decision. Originally, when we first put it up, Nick and I looked at each other and thought, wow, this is really shiny. Are we going to antique it, or what are we going to do to tame this down? But the more that I have it there, I'm kind of appreciative of it, and I'm having second thoughts if I'm going to do anything to antique it. I might just leave it alone because of the warmth benefits that it has. Remember, we're not building the Taj Mahal here. This is a cabin on a budget. So it was pretty affordable. It cost me $697 to get all that corrugated steel. And as it ends up being, I have a whole bunch of it that's left over. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Maybe we'll use it for bear proofing the legs of the tree stands or whatever, because you know of our bear problem we have up there. But that was the initial cost of the galvanized roof ceiling, was $697. And then in last week's video, you saw us going ahead and putting in the bamboo flooring. That we got as a deal. That flooring was for sale on Facebook Marketplace forever. And the guy who owned it just couldn't unload it. We were a little skeptical about getting it. We've noticed, and you guys that are in flooring, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like there's different grades of bamboo that is out there. And when we went and inspected this bamboo flooring is really, really hard. We ended up sliding that wood burning stove across a small section of it and the table when we put the cabin back together after installing the flooring. didn't come up with any scratches at all. So I think we're going to be okay. I think this is probably a harder grade bamboo. And because nobody was being receptive to buying this stuff, the guy ultimately let the flooring go with the foam backing behind it for $200. And then, so that covers the flooring. Now, something I almost forgot to include in this video, I didn't get a chance to shoot a video on it. My camera battery went dead, and Shorts and I put that stinking master bedroom together, and I was so proud of it. We installed my first pocket door. I thought this is going to make a great video. Hopefully I can help teach people from our mistakes and give them some clues on how to put that stuff together correctly. And the video just never came out because of my foolishness with the camera batteries. But I remembered it when writing up my receipts and everything and looking through my receipts. The pocket door itself, it comes with the frame, the door, everything included, was $250. The lumber for that bedroom, if you notice, we put that bedroom up with 2x4s, and then I think there was like a 2x12 that was included in there. That was all donated by a viewer. So we didn't have to pay anything for the additional lumber to put the bedroom up itself. So we saved a bit of money there. After the bedroom, we moved into the family room because winter was fastly approaching, and I wanted the cabin to be ready to go for the winter months. I wanted to be able to enjoy it for our annual hunts up there. My wife and I were lucky enough to look through the ads, and we saw that Tractor Supply had a wood burning stove. I think it was made by US Stove. That was just really, really cheap, and it was a lot cheaper than what Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, all those stores were selling them for. And so it drew us in. We went to look at the stove. They only had one left, and the guy who was selling it says, "I don't think you want this one. It's been damaged." And here we're panicking because the cold weather's coming. I said, "Well, can you show me it and let me see what it looks like?" We went and looked at the stove, and luckily the only thing that was damaged is they snapped the big cast iron handle off and lever that is used to close and seal the door. And so we worked out a deal with them. I think I might have mistakenly said in one of my past videos it was $200, but I think it was $250 that we actually paid for that. And the stove originally was valued at quite a bit more than that. And so what we did is we went online, got the manufacturer's phone number, gave them a call. They gave us all the free parts. We just had to quick install them. It was well worth the money that we paid. I get a lot of questions about, "Carl, why did you go with a stove that big? It's way overkill for the cabin." I've got a little bit of experience with wood burning stoves. I've been using them now for 20 plus years. And here's the reason I went with that big stove. You can always put less wood in a big stove, but if you have a tiny stove, you can't always put more wood into it. You understand what I'm saying? When I go to bed at night, the last thing I want to do is to be getting up every 2 or 3 hours and stoking that darn stinking wood stove up to try to stay warm throughout the night. So I felt good about getting this oversized stove. I dial the air intake way back, and I pack it with all sorts of wood, and it's nice. I can go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and feel confident when I wake up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. I still have a ton of coals inside that wood burning stove. I open up the dampener, my flame takes right off. So when I'm up there, I don't have to worry about constantly relighting the stove, and the cabin's always warm. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I keep that cabin at about 80 degrees when it's ice cold out. And if you've ever had a wood burning stove, there's nothing that feels better than wood heat. And so far it's been great. You keep a pot of water on the wood burning stove, it stays moist and humid in there. You don't have to worry about having bloody noses or any of that good stuff. So that's why I bought the oversized stove. The price I couldn't turn down at that $250. I'd be a fool if I would have let that stove pass by. The thing that does not come with the stove though, which cost me more additional money, was I needed to buy the stove pipe and the support box that goes up through the roof. And then also that rubber flashing that goes through the roof. Parts of that I got donated, parts of it I had laying around, but what I did have to purchase was $140 worth of materials. The wood burning stove fan, I'm going to include that in on this list because that is almost essential. When I sleep in that back bedroom, if I didn't have that fan on, trust me, it was always cooler in that bedroom because it's enclosed. And the wood holds the coldness. When I'm not up there all week and I get up there on the weekend and fire that thing up, the floor and everything holds a little bit of the coldness. And it takes probably a good 6 to 8 hours to get that place heated up to where it's going to be comfortable and the wood sustains itself. And that wood burning stove fan that I showed you, that thing is a heaven sent. It was well worth the money that I spent, and that was $40.08. So that's what I have into the cabin right now. The only thing that I haven't taken into effect is I still haven't done any of my finished trim work. Where do I need to put finished trim? Around the windows, the doors, and then also I'd like to put finished trim around the walls where they meet the floor. That's going to be minimal. I'm not too worried about that. But originally when we purchased the cabin, we set for ourselves a $20,000 limit. Right now we're at $19,953.65. That's the cost of the cabin, all the internal things that I mentioned, and the garage. We're at just under $20,000. So we're within our budget. And it's kind of funny. I had somebody, I'm sure he wasn't a subscriber to the channel. Last week he made kind of a snide comment about these are rich folk that are pretending. And I just kind of laughed it off. And I'm thinking, you know, if I was a rich folk, I wouldn't be buying a shed for a cabin. And the guy obviously didn't know our backstory. He didn't know about our physical health and what we had all gone through. And matter of fact, it was so bad that they started foreclosure process on my home, and I only had 3 years left on my mortgage. We were losing everything, and so what we did to keep the home is we sold everything that we owned, and my wife had inherited a house. We sold that. We were using it as a rental property. I had some money that I had made on another home that I had owned that I ended up selling to another family member. And all that money, our whole life savings, went into paying off medical bills. So I really had to laugh when he said these are rich folk, you know, pretending, or whatever his stupid comment was, because that obviously is not the case here. How did we finance the cabin? If we lost all of our money, where did we get the money from to finance this $20,000? And how did we come about putting a $20,000 limit on it? Here's how we came about it. I've had an old 1969 Pontiac GTO, which was my dream car. I owned it since I was in high school. I paid, I think, $1,200 or $1,300 for the car. And I kept it throughout my whole life, and that was my baby. When the crap hit the fan, reality set in. You know, if we want to be able to make our dreams come true, sometimes you have to do a little bit of sacrificing. So I took that car, put it up for sale, and that paid for about half of the cabin because the car, I took key components out of it. I had a drag engine in it, a race motor that I paid thousands and thousands of dollars for, and that I won't get rid of. That'll always go in a future car if we get one in the future. But I got a good percentage of the cabin paid off from that, and I think I sold that car for around $10,000 without an engine and without an interior. And then the other $10,000, I was resourceful. I got permission from my bosses to go on job sites where we had extra copper wire that the electricians were throwing out. I'm a plumber by trade. Any of the scrap copper or brass that normally I would throw out, I got approval to keep that stuff and turn it in for scrap. That's how we paid for the cabin. Not a single cent of this $20,000 ever came out of our family budget or any money that would, cause my family to sacrifice or to do without something. It was all extra money that I had got off of doing odd jobs, the scrap copper and brass that I saved, and the sale of my old muscle car. So that was a blessing. And would I do it all over again? Yeah, I would. The amount of joy that the cabin brings into my life and my family's life is just incredible. Half my family doesn't want to be seen on film, but they love the cabin. They love coming up there. We're building memories that will last a lifetime. And I once heard an old saying that there's no greater success in life that can compensate for failure in the home. And, I thought if there's one thing I'm going to do in life, I'm not going to fail in my home. I'm going to figure out a way to keep the family close, to build memories and things of that nature. And that's how we're doing it. We're doing it with the cabin. And I just feel so blessed to be able to, even though it's not a big, expensive, elite place, it's what we can afford at this point in time in our lives. And what's awesome about it is the land where the cabin is built on, we bought shortly after we were married. And we really had no expense there. We took out a really tiny mortgage on that, and we've had it for 20 some years. And so when we finally were able to scrimp and save and to come up with these little few extra bucks, everything just fell into line. So that's it, $19,953.65. The only thing that I did not include in here, which, I'll leave it up to you guys. If you're thinking of doing the same thing, it's something that you can't overlook. We had to clear the land to put the building in, and I had to get a driveway put in. I was shocked when I heard how much heavy equipment companies get for putting in driveways. The cheapest clearing of the land and driveway estimate that we got was $9,000. And that would have been way out of our budget. We could have never afforded that. And I heard a commercial on one of the local radio shows, and they were advertising a rental company up in Iron River, Michigan that has heavy equipment. And I've got a little bit of experience running excavators and skid steers. And so I went ahead and I rented a mini excavator. We rented it for 2 different projects. I put the driveway in first. That originally cost me $900 to put in the driveway. That they quoted me $9,000 to have somebody else put in. I pushed over all the trees with it. I leveled all the land off with it, and luckily I found that hard pack was underneath the topsoil, and we were able to use that hard pack or pit fill for our foundation. And then that was $900, and there was another $500 for when we came back in at the very end. If you notice, right when I found out I got Lyme disease, I had the mini excavator and a skid steer there. And what we did, the dog's barking in the background, she's dreaming. But anyways, we had to do some last minute tweaks to the driveway. The guy who was helping me out with the compactor kind of screwed up a little bit on one side of the driveway, and we did find we had a little bit of rain runoff that was coming towards the front of the cabin. So I simply rented the excavator for a day and did the improvements that I needed. And I guess I had a little bit longer than a day because I also went down by the lake property and I put in a drive in the lake property, and I also cleared a pathway down to the lake. So that was an extra $1,400. So that's something that you might want to take into consideration. I don't know that there's any more advice I could give you other than that. So that's our initial price that we have into the cabin. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in, and I know this video got a little bit long, but like I said, when I had that one video go viral, this was the biggest question that everybody had, and I thought I'm just going to go ahead and make a longer video that encompasses everything. So thanks for watching. I'd like to thank my subscribers and thank my brand new subscribers. This channel is going nuts right now. Would you believe, only 10% of the people that watch my videos are subscribers? 90% are people who just kind of pass through and they'll watch one video and go on. So I appreciate you guys that are backing me, that are here and helping me out by viewing these videos. I appreciate all of you who have shared it with a friend. And it helps the channel grow. And you know, all this stuff costs money to do. I guess something I could have included in this list was my gas money running back and forth. But that I would have spent regardless because I have a great love for being in the North Woods. So we'll catch you next time on Carl's Off the Grid.